GM, everyone. Hello and welcome to another Developers Guild. My name is Mike Pawel. I am the DevRel at Superteam Germany. And today we have a very exciting topic, namely ZK and everything around it. We were talking about like ZK compression in one of our past dev guilds with Light Protocol, but this time we will talk about Darklake, namely like how to build for privacy with ZK technology. What you will expect is the growing importance of zero knowledge and how to find opportunities in existing frameworks, and then the process of building and testing. And we want to make this session like very interactive. If you have any questions, we can definitely direct the entire flow differently, or like talk about different aspects of it, maybe the history, where it started, where it went. But without further ado, I am happy to introduce Vitor, who is founder of Darklake. GM, how's it going?
Yeah, nice to be here. My first time speaking with Superteam Germany, which is cool. I'm I'm a neighbor, I guess, a member of Superteam Poland, and yeah, I've been speaking most of Superteam Poland events. So yeah, cool to be here. Darklake is essentially a newish company. We've been existing since last year, I guess, from last Colossal Radar when the company was actually founded, and we've been building new ZK primitives in this short period of time.
Exactly. Like one thing that I forgot to mention is Darklake was a winner of the Radar Hackathon. You won the second place of the DeFi track, right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's like very impressive, first of all, because we just finished the last Cyberpunk hackathon, and it was like super competitive. So maybe before we start going there, can you give us some aspect on how you managed to win with a ZK project, which is I think for most people pretty difficult to grasp, and then like winning even a track.
Yeah, to be honest, it's a fun story. Like, kind of meshes with my personal life. I used to work for Meta. I was working for Meta AI Systems, and I had some blockchain exposure before, but one day I just got tired of working for Web2, got really pissed, decided I wanted to do Web3 full time, quit my job, sold everything, moved to Poland where my girlfriend is, and and end up bumping into Solana. I knew some ZK from before, mostly from identity space, um, but I bumped in Solana through Turbine, the training program, and I was at the time with Dean and Jeff, and just jamming. And Darklake wasn't really meant to be a competitive project for Colosseum. It was my Turbine capstone, and at the
Yes.
time, Turbine said, "Hey, why don't submit it to Colosseum?" And yeah, it got the second place. So I was not expecting that, to be honest. And yeah.
Well, I didn't hear that story yet. Like from a project that you do for Turbine, then create like a project for the hackathon and then win like directly the second place. That's very impressive on its own. But for I really mean it. Like it's not easy to win in those hackathons. But before we like continue, can you tell us or like say what the aspect of Darklake is, or what you built there at the first step, and then where it's going now?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, the idea for the hackathon was kind of a very nerdy idea. It was like, hey, can you frame MEV as a privacy problem? A privacy problem in the sense that when you submit a transaction, someone colludes or has access to a validator, and they can reorder your transaction to get some information, and to get some profit. And what if we make the transaction confidential enough that whoever is on the validator before the transaction is actually on a block, they can't profitably uh, calculate a sandwich. So can you make some parameters of the transaction confidential? Um, for Darklake during Colosseum, we use a very classical algorithm to do this, and it's the same thing that the Light protocol is used, and it's very simple to implement. And but for us, and mostly for DeFi space, certain classical forms of ZK, they are very rigid. For example, when you have the inputs for a proof, these inputs cannot change. And if your proof, for example, and if just think of proof as a program, is nothing more than that. It's a program that returns true or false. Um, if these if these inputs have changed, this proof is no longer valid. This proof is false. So if something, when you're dealing in DeFi, when you have things like you want to know the amount of liquidity or price, if these are their inputs, they change very fast. So proofs are invalidated very fast, and proof generation takes time. So what ended up building Darklake is a class of essentially new ZK, and there's a few university groups building this around the world, and us, a bunch of really annoying people in Poland. Um, and it's called malleable snarks. That's essentially a snark that allows some of these inputs to change. We just published the preprint at the International Association of Cryptological Research, preparing now to go into one of the journals. And yeah, Darklake essentially allows us to do this proof where some parameters change. So we can do neat things like, for example, check your slippage, but keep your slippage confidential. So whoever is calculating sandwich cannot calculate an optimal sandwich. Or do, for example, RFQs, when you ask someone to give you a quote on a price. And at the same time, you don't want to say what's the best or worst price that you want to accept, right? You want to get a quote and just get the best of it. And so we can keep that best price information confidential. So yeah, we just are finishing this protocol, and now trying different forms of product, I guess, to find PMF, and yeah, keep on building.
So just one question up front there. You mentioned it keeps the slippage or like some order information private. Does it mean that usually when I, for example, go on Jupiter and want to make a trade with a stop loss or something like this, those information are all put on chain for other people to abuse it?
Yes, that's exactly my. I always compare that it's essentially you're going to a shop, and imagine you're going to, I don't know, you went to Morocco's and you're going to these old Medinas to negotiate a carpet, but you're carrying on your shirt how much you're willing to pay. That's exactly the price you're going to get, and what we try is making sure that whoever is fulfilling your quotes can't really see what's the worst price you're willing to pay.
That's pretty good. I didn't know, but now I do. And so does it work like marketplace where people could go on the website and then like make the orders through your platform, or is it like a on top SDK that people would have to implement in their code?
Oh, so for the to putting like my dev grat in the history, one is you build the technique and say, hey, how do we get this to market, right? And our first like step to get this to market, we just built a website that works like a DEX. People put liquidity on it, and you can go and trade. And yeah, we always had I don't know, Solana, USDC, a little bit of liquidity so people can test it. And but the idea overall is to eventually let people just build new products using Zyga proofs. And the name is for Henry Zygalski. It's a Polish mathematician who first broke Enigma. And yeah, I have a thing with Polish ciphers. It's a very beautiful story. And
So yeah, maybe we can also talk about Ziga more, or how do you pronounce it? It's Ziga?
Zygalski.
Zygalski, okay. Yeah, I'm also Polish myself. So so you hear the connection there. But what exactly is Ziga then? Like, how do you use it, or what is
So
it for?
yeah, when you if you go right now, you're a Solana dev, and then right you're in Superteam, and you say, hey, I want to build something ZK based. And the idea for ZK is going to build a small program that you can verify on chain if that program is executed correctly or not. There is essentially one protocol that everyone uses on Solana. It's a protocol called Graph16. It has this funky name because it was created by Jens Graph, and he published it in 2016. And yeah, I'm not the only one that's terrible with names. And so Graph16 is essentially what everyone uses. There is a repo, I think is Solana Graph16 from the Light Protocol guys. If you go to the Darklake GitHub, there's a few forks of me for doing like Pinocchio versions or no standard versions. And essentially you can verify this thing. But and when you build this little program, it has a little inputs and outputs, right? It's a function, right? It receives some data, it outputs some data. The data it receives is private. You can't see it on the proof. What it outputs is public. And essentially, what we do is that if we have a proof, we can't allow any of these inputs to change, either the private or the public ones. They need to stay the same. We essentially create special type of proof that has some inputs that stay private, some inputs are public, and some inputs are public but deferred. I don't have a great name for them, but they essentially means, hey, I know this is going to be a value, but I don't know it right now. I'm going to know it by the time I verify the proof. So, for example, if I want to do slippage, the classical case, I want to say, hey, this is the minimum amount I'm willing to accept. My slippage is private, but you're only going to know the amount you're going to receive the moment you're going to verify the proof. You can do this with classical Graph16 because you need to know the amount that you're going to receive by the time you generate the proof. But with Zyga, you can generate a proof that has this like placeholder that say, hey, put the price in here and check if this program is still valid. And so yeah, it's fairly new. It's and we have a small, usually as most of ZK, we use a special programming language to write it. For Graph16, usually Circom. On Ethereum, you have more options. You have Noir from the Aztec guys. And yeah, we also have our small custom language, and but it's very simple. It's not very difficult for anyone to use.
All right, well, like talking about code, can you maybe walk us through the GitHub repo that you have and maybe show us what people can use, or like maybe clone and work on it, or just use it for implementation in their own product? I think that would be nice.
Sure. To be honest, if you one of the repos I always refer to is the Darklake monorepo on Darklake. Let me share my screen.
So just for the online audience, you can copy this link or the QR codes up there. So have it on your phone. It's the GitHub for Darklake that we will show, or Vitor will show.
Yep.
All right. Okay, there it is.
You should have this nice effect now.
Now we see it.
This is Darklake monorepo is exactly the code we use for the hackathon. It's not the active code for Darklake, and it's no longer a monorepo. But if you want to build a mini app with VC with ZK, that's a great place to start because it has self-contained in a repo, kind of everything you use with like most standard possible Solana tooling. Essentially, these are the repo from Light Protocol. That's using my fork that has very small modifications. You can just use Light Protocols, which is essentially Graph16 Solana. That's an implementation of Graph16. And this is a very like small library that allows you to verify on chain if a ZK program is a ZK proof is valid or not. It's to build this, you start from these little custom programs from us. They are built with a language called Circom, and if you want to learn Circom, there is a website called Rare Skills that has everything you need to know about ZK as a beginner. It's definitely my go-to place for anyone who wants to learn. And Circom is just programming, and every time you see this triple equals, we're just saying, hey, make sure this condition is true. So if any of these conditions turn out to be false somewhere during the execution of the program, this proof will be no longer valid. That's a good mental model to think about it. And yeah.
So would you have to run this code locally then? And do you need some specific compiler for Circon? Maybe for
Yes.
the people, like what is the most like nearest language to Circon?
To be honest, Circom, yeah, it kind of comes from the Solidity world, I guess. So it kind of looks slightly like Solidity, for me at least, or kind of like JavaScript a little bit. But Circom is very, very easy. It has a compiler, which is Circom. You start with Node.js. When you compile it, it generates a bunch of these intermediary files. I think it's the R1CS file, and it has a somewhat contrived way to do this. And yeah, I think I have somewhere in my in my dependencies how to build this, and I'll find this somewhere. But essentially, you run Circom, it generates some intermediary files, and eventually you get something that looks like this, which is a verification key. Is a piece of JSON. The Light protocol code includes a little script that takes this and scripts that takes this and no. Oh, here has a little script that takes this JSON and outputs Rust. When it comes out of Rust, then it just becomes a question of really this is what JSON looks like, and this is essentially like the output, your JSON compiler, and of the Circom code. And essentially and somewhere around here, you're going to use verifying.
So the code you get either way, if it's like valid or invalid, right?
Yeah, so essentially what you're gonna, this is the only line like you need to copy like from my swap code, is you're gonna generate on the JavaScript side, you're gonna generate 3 pieces of like encoded data, which is the proof, and you're gonna verify against the verifying key, which is that Rust that was generated for you. And if this relationship is valid, it means this proof is valid and that program has successfully executed with values that are encoded here.
I see. Okay. Makes sense. And all of this you would have to run locally on your device in order to run it, right? Or is it like some online thing where you maybe input a transaction or something like this?
So
and then
this is an Anchor program. This is running on chain. So we verify on chain and generate off chain. So for generation, there is Snark.js that generates this in browser and generates the proofs for you. It generates the three first parts of the proof, and on chain you verify whether what the browser submitted is true or not.
I see. All right. We also have a question here. How much of Darklake is available open source, like a percentage wise? And any advice for someone who wants to contribute, where to start, what pain points currently exist, and what can be exposed open source?
Yeah, Darklake will eventually be 100% open source. Right now, it isn't. Essentially, we are for the new parts. For what's open source right now is the web front end, the first version, the hackathon version that's on the Darklake monorepo, and what is going to be open source as soon as I get an approval for my compliance partner is the Zyga itself. But yeah, there's a few steps before we can release that.
But can you somehow contribute, like help out, maybe work with your team? I think that was also a question.
Yeah, for sure. There's a bunch of stuff. If you you're a fairly prolific team in terms of what you generate and what you want to do. We're also a small team. We're essentially three very senior devs. So yeah, if someone wants to help out, feel free to ping me. Ping me on Twitter is the best way to talk to me. And yeah, very be very glad to help.
So if people can message you on Twitter, your Twitter tag is at Vitor Py, right?
At Vitor because I cannot get Vitor Py.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's on Twitter or Telegram. Where should people message you?
Twitter is better. Telegram just I have way too much noise of people trying to sell stuff to me. I don't open it as much.
All right, then, guys, you heard it. You have the opportunity to message Vitor on X. I always recommend to take this. Ah, yeah, there we go. Pi Vitor, fairly prolific. Yeah, definitely. Like message him. It's great to have founders and people on the Dev Guild who are open to like questions and talks. You rarely see it, so definitely nice opportunity there.
Yeah, Solana still has a small but growing ZK community. Um, Ethereum has leaned a lot on ZK even for scaling, and but some of the tech that Ethereum uses, for example, when Ethereum they built the ZK VMs, which is essentially a virtual machine, and you generate a proof. This virtual machine generate a bit of code, and just test that. And they use very big proofs for us. They're proofs that take like 100K in size, and Solana transactions are very very small. When Solana transactions are very very small, they used to be one. Well, they're still 1.2K. They will be 4K soon because we've been annoying Anza for a long time. Both myself, the guys from Arcium, and everyone that works with ZK or crypto in general. And we can't really use a lot of the techniques that the Ethereum folks use. Either we would need multiple transactions to update a single proof. One of the reasons we built Zyga is that we wanted something that was fit for purpose, that was, we could have this flexibility of price changes, but at the same time, being a company that was born within the Solana ecosystem, we wanted something that would work on Solana. So a lot of our time is like shaving bytes to make sure that we're not taking all of the transaction space, because we want to make sure that we can still, for example, interoperate with Jupyter. And if your ZK proof is taking the entire transaction, you're not really doing that. So yeah, there is very specific challenges of like doing ZK in Solana, and they tend to be fairly different from the challenges of doing ZK in Ethereum. And yeah, their tooling is more developed so far, but we'll change that.
And talking about Ethereum, did you first start doing ZK on Ethereum, or where's the connection there? Do you just see that there's stuff on Ethereum that you use on Solana, or
Oh,
did you?
I'm a former Ethereum founder, actually. Before I went to Meta in 2017, I founded Ethereum wallet called Pillar. It's a smart wallet, so it's all on chain. Nowadays, it's an account abstraction toolkit called EtherSpot. Um, and to be honest, I never. It's funny, it's the X factor from having Superteam, I guess. I was never really a part of the community on Ethereum, but on Solana, this has become very easy to me. And I eventually gave up on Ethereum, gave up on crypto, to be honest, for a while, but eventually found my home again, I guess, building Solana.
Yeah, Solana is definitely big on the community side, so nice to have you here for sure. And are you building solely on Solana at the moment, or is Darklake also like cross-chain compatible?
It's theoretically cross-chain compatible, um, but quite frankly, both in terms of funding and ties, we are deep into the Solana space. So yeah, I do have a prototype of Zyga proofs for Ethereum, but yeah, right now we're building on Solana. We believe in Solana.
I think we all do, like from the
Yeah.
people in the audience, we do believe in Solana. And we also see, like, from all the participants throughout the years, like how many hackathon projects are being developed, how many startups are being created, people changing from Ethereum to Solana. I am one part of it. I was starting also in Ethereum, and now I am in the Solana ecosystem more involved. So yeah, there's definitely a good time to be in Solana, and I think like starting on from now, it will even increase more and more. But speaking again about Ethereum, because I know that you're pretty advanced in this topic, could you say like something about the history of ZK? Like, do you know when it started? Because I'm not even sure if it started with Ethereum or did it was
No,
linked to Ethereum at first and then
if you read the tutorial, everyone is gonna say that ZK started in 1985, and 1985 was when ZK is born. There's classical journal paper that established the first um, mathematical results that allow ZK to exist. But essentially, ZK comes from a very mathematical property of asking a question like, hey, I know a number. How do I prove to you that I know this number without revealing this number? Um, and eventually, for a class of problems, not all possible problems, but for a subset of them, we show there's a way to do that. And it's good because most of these problems are computable problems, are problems we can easily compute, and or there are problems we face day to day, and some of them are computable. But yeah, well, anyway, we get this class of problems, and we learn that we can do that. But essentially, ZK stays very academic um, until, quite frankly, a bit before Zcash. It starts roughly at the same time as Bitcoin, but they work on at the time was Zero Cash and then Zcash with all these OG guys like Zoko, Ben Sasson, and I'm very happy to see Zcash being lauded now because these guys are super OGs in the space. And Ethereum eventually used ZK not for its privacy aspects like Zcash did, but one of the cool things is that when you say, "Oh, I know a number and I can send you a proof that I know this number," sometimes I can know a very big number and my proof is still very small. So it has a natural, what the light protocols call it has a compression characteristic to it. And what essentially Ethereum does is you have the entire state of a level 2 and a rollup, and you generate a very small proof that this state is is changing the way you're saying is changing. So This is a property we call verifiable compute. And it's a property of ZK that's used by Ethereum for scaling. But for example, if you go to Starknet, which is one of the Ethereum rollups, and very smart guys develop half of the tech that people use to do ZK VMs, but it has no privacy characteristics inherent to it. It's a fully transparent chain. It's using ZK as purely as verifiable compute and for scaling. And right now, I think they're doing private stuff, but traditionally, they are just building this for scaling. And a lot of the effort that Ethereum does, the Lean Ethereum initiative, is built around these properties. We really don't care too much about these properties when you're building on Solana. Solana scaling is completely different. The way that the consensus layer works and Alpenglow is going to work is completely different from the many characteristics of Ethereum. But we do interest of using this for its privacy parts. If you see new projects, for example, I think it's called Privacy Cache, the Alliance project that there was an Alliance Down project that was essentially doing privacy mixers on Solana. They're essentially building on Tornado Cache, which is essentially the algorithm behind the first pools from one of the first pools from Zcash. And so these are privacy characteristics that are currently being used. Interesting enough, in Solana, we also use it for account compression because we have the rent problem that Ethereum people don't have. And yeah. And I guess, I don't know if Magic Blocks use it. They could probably.
And because we were talking about Light Protocol, I've seen in the GitHub that you were implementing them, or like how does it work? Because
So
I know
the first implementation of Graph 16 of the classical algorithms was done by the Light Protocol guys. I know the Light Protocol guys were the guys who first bugged Anza, or I guess at the time was Solana Labs, to put the first sys calls that allow us to do cryptography operations within the Solana blockchain. Yeah, I think they're still building it. Sven's a great guy. And but yeah, compression is one of the things you can use ZK for.
I see. And but so just for understanding, what you do at Darklake is basically both things, like on one side the privacy and then also compression. But is it always like combined? Like, do you have directly compression with privacy, or does it give an overhead to the privacy thing?
So that when you're dealing with, especially with Graph 16 or with Zyga proofs, which are the Graph 16 is what Light Protocol uses, and what we use. These are called pairing proofs. They're based on Elliptic crypto, and they have a fixed size. This proof. It doesn't matter how much data you're verifying. The proof's always going to have a fixed size. Light Protocol is slightly smaller. They're compression people. Mines are more flexible, so they're slightly bigger, and just slightly. And and these so you always have compression depending on, as long as you're verifying more data than you're actually the size of these proofs. These proofs are very small. They're around 300, 400 bytes. Yeah, the exact number escapes me, but they're quite small. And as long as you are verifying more data than that, yeah, you're always going to have some degree of compression.
Right, right. And have you seen like projects that are being built while using Darklake, or do you see any application fields beside like trading, as you mentioned?
So yes, so one of the things we'd love, for example, to address at some point is, for example, applications for identity. Identity, you always have the classical example of like, oh, prove the time of drinking age, and if you're in conservative states in the US, you might need to prove that you are over 21. If you're in most places in Europe, you're like over 16 or something. And most of the world, these are two different proofs. For Zyga proofs, this is one proof that you can verify against different standards depending on the country. For drinking age, doesn't really matter because it's not something that you do often. But for example, a trader that is at the same time trading equity assets in the US or equity assets in Dubai, and they all have different qualifications. Having this property of reusing proofs very quickly is quite important. We haven't had the chance to explore it, to be honest, because building the proof, it's the proof system, and finding partners is a lot of time. But identity for me is one of the coolest use cases, and we'd love to find either partners to build it, people with the problems, and and the cool shit.
So is this the current future work? And if not, like, what is the future work of Darklake? Like, what's the end goal, the end vision?
So identity is one of the spaces for sure that we're looking to enter. Of course, Solana works very well and has a very strong association with finance. Our first product was on spot trading of assets in Solana. Something that we plan on doing very soon, probably for Breakpoint, is the what we call essentially hybrid private pools for perps. When you're trading perps, if you can see on chain how much leverage you have and how much money you got in that position, what market makers do is essentially put a big heat map and say, hey, if the price gets to this point, a lot of people are going to get liquidated, and that's a good opportunity. And this is bad, right? Because if you're a whale, like, you're just this bright spot that says target, and either you're actively monitoring your position as the price moves, or eventually someone's going to get you. And what we're doing in Darklake is essentially let all the prices and matching to stay public, but the size of your position, like how much you use on leverage, to stay confidential. And this means no one can pinpoint, hey, this guy is close to being liquidated. And so this gives a very different and fairer, in the very like mathematical sense of fairer markets. And so perps is one of the things. We should have a demo for Breakpoint, and it should be one of the focus for next year.
Well, I definitely see that the privacy aspect would be mostly relevant for like people with more money or people who want to invest more. But it's not only like people with big money, right? For example, you have like high leverage, and as you mentioned, like that is a thing that people might be interested in. So I see, like, could you see being also integrated directly into Jupiter? Would that be possible?
I would love to. And we've definitely been reaching out to most of the ecosystem. I actually don't. Jupiter is one of the very few aggregators that don't have a conversation right now, but all the others are, you're actively bugging them and have like planned releases for short future.
Very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the demo. But like, so you say you would be done with the demo in like a couple of months. But let's say you
No,
have
for Breakpoint.
for Breakpoint, it's like next month, right? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
next month. Yeah.
Next month. Time moves so fast.
It was,
Uh,
yeah.
it's nearly December, damn. But okay, let's think about like in a spectrum of like 2 to 5 years, which is like in crypto massive.
Yeah.
Where do you see Darklake being in those times?
To be honest, I was my partner absolutely hates me when I say it isn't a VC meeting, what I always say is that like thinking 2 years time frame in crypto is not a good exercise. You really never know. But there are some big changes in the landscape for privacy. Privacy has one really big change that is post-quantum encryption. Most of the techniques that we use within Solana are not quantum resistant, and quantum resistant requires bigger proofs for most of the techniques so far. And so that's probably one of the biggest aspects. It also introduces new challenges in how do we deal with privacy. But essentially, in terms of like market direction, if you look at historically, in the 70s, when people are like, everything happened on that open market, that movie market in stock exchange with the guys screaming at each other. Eventually, this become running on computers. But when it started running on computers, the first thing that happens in the US is the rise of alternative trading systems. Is instead of people trading on stock exchange, they're trading on a dark pool or a dark room, or they're trading in privacy venues. This change already happened in the stock market. Um, we expect to see the same change to see happen in crypto as the market matures. Nowadays, most of the trading happens over open venues, or at least semi-open venues for the case of proper MMs. But we expect eventually to all trading, or a significant amount of trading, to go into dark venues, and you want to be there to capture this market.
Yeah, I definitely see it. And okay, just for one quick remark to the online audience. If you have any questions, write them directly in the chat, like either on YouTube or on X. We will be happy to discuss it. But we were talking about your the Darklake front end or website site. Would you share it and just walk us through what to expect or what you can do there?
To be honest, Darklake website is not a great example right now, because it's essentially, yeah, being honest, I'm very. What we can do right now, it looks just like, I don't know, any exchange, and it has small amounts of liquidity because. So one of the putting like sharing dev stories in the middle of the year, we could not make a Zyga proof fit into one Solana transaction, and that was a desperate thing. And it's 1.2K, and I spent hours of my life maximizing and trying to do. But when we built this first version, because its transactions were so big, we had to have our own liquidity pools. We could not integrate it to anyone. We occupy most of the transaction by ourselves. And what's on the website is the version that we release, where people have to deposit liquidity just like a traditional exchange, with all the steps. And sharing like builder journey is like, we learned that, well, asking people to source liquidity, they expect you to have order flow to actually remunerate that liquidity. And people who have order flow, they actually expect you to have liquidity. So it kind of becomes a really catch-22 for bootstrapping the two of them at the same time. Yeah, we thought we could do it, but turns out, yeah, it was terrible. And so what we're pivoting or like adjusting this product, now that we can make the proofs even smaller, is to allow us to source liquidity, for example, for Radium or from other exchanges, but at the same time still have the Darklake privacy guarantees. This requires substantial technical lift, even if it seems a small lift from the user experience perspective. For us as a builders, that was like a major pull. So yeah, that's where you're going.
All right. Well, I'm definitely rooting for you guys. And like we were also talking, wait, there's one thing Zika is going to change the game. Yeah, I mean, there is much potential, specifically with the cypherpunk movement, not only from Ethereum, but also like the privacy aspects on Solana. I see a big step moving forward there. But you mentioned you want to hit this goal for Abu Dhabi. Will you be present there, like as a booth? Do you have like some like what is your presence there to
Oh,
expect for people who
well,
want to
not as a booth because no, we're poor, but yeah, we'll definitely be there. Myself, Jazz, and Amber, yeah, we'll definitely be there and yeah, mingling. Um, yeah, hope at some point we'll have a booth, but yeah, definitely not this year.
and would you have like a talk or something prepared there?
Yes, we do have some time on stage. Yeah,
Well, that's already pretty good. I mean,
yeah,
not many projects can tell that they have like a presentation during breakpoint, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's great. Um, well, what I would like to also ask you for developers who are building in the space, maybe like let's say we look at beginners, intermediates, and like advanced people. What would you recommend to each group? Like, what should beginners focus on, like building on Solana and like just starting off with privacy and then like the other stages?
To be honest, like I would say to people, I've been building tech for 15 years. Had a machine learning startup 15 years ago, which no one's talking about AI. And I always recommend people to approach everything as a beginner's mindset. That is essentially what I try to do with Solana. It's like when even if I was a super senior guy coming out of big tech, I was still went to Turbine and did everything that people recommend for someone new. And I think that's a good way to see the world, and it's a good way to start learning. And one of the best things when you're a beginner is that you don't know why things are going to go wrong. That's a extremely powerful capacity. As you got older, you start thinking, "Oh, this is gonna go wrong in so many ways. That's not how to way to do software. That's not the how way to do ZK." And but when you just go with a beginner's mindset, say, "Hey, let's just gonna try this shit and see if it works." Um, yeah, you start finding ways to make it work. Darklake itself, what we won the hackathon, because we used classical proofs, it was very limited in the amount of transactions we could process. If the pool has changed at all between the time the proof generation and the next guy was coming, um, the the transaction will be rejected. So you could take one transaction a block, two transactions a block, not much more than that. And but at the same time, we had the I don't know, the beginner's vision, like, well, we'll find a way to make it work. And the way to make it work involved hiring my friend that had a PhD and was a professor at the university and actually writing new ZK. But well, found a way. So um,
Way of having different startup people joining you. I don't know many professors just working on it.
yeah, we eventually were, and one of the and now if I want to give a good advice for people who've been on building on the space for time, Darklake is built by the best people I've worked with. And I literally did a list of who are my top 10 people that I worked across in the last 15 years, and who would like to hire from that list. And I just approached them and just say, hey, would like to work for me? I just create a company. I have just very little bit of money, and would you take some percentage and join me? And it's surprising, but some people do say yes. And even when they have very good jobs, and you surprise yourself. But end up having a chance to build a company with very bright people, brighter than I am, and quite frankly, people I have fun working with every day. And quite frankly, I wouldn't do otherwise.
I think there was like a at the end the last break, like some internet connectivity issues.
Yeah, I was just saying that essentially, yeah, will eventually ask for people to join you, and some people will say yes. And for Darklake, I have the chance to work with the brightest people I know and have fun doing it because they are also great people to work with. So if you want to start a company and you're a senior dev, like lean on your experience to find your people. I always find it interesting that before hackathons, you see people say, "Hey, I need to find a co-worker," and my friends say, "Look, dude, just lean on the people you know. You've been working in the space for 10 years. You're probably gonna know some people, or even if you're in college. My first startup was with my mates from school, and so yeah,
Like I also see this that what you mentioned, people like to experience the startup area, and we see it during hackathons as well. Like we see people quitting their jobs, for example, like doing it on the side, trying to transition towards the startup field. So creating your own product is always like a lot of fun. Like you go into the unknown for some part, and you just go out there and try to do some stuff. So I definitely get it.
it's it's the thing of like think what the worst that could happen, right? Worst could happen. Have to find a job. That's not the worst thing in the world. And so
Yeah, I mean, at the end, if it doesn't work out, you still make like lots of you meet a lot of new people, you learn lots of new stuff that might be helpful during your new job. So it's like never
yeah,
a zero sum game or like that you make
never
loss.
expected to meet Tolly, for example, but yeah, Darklake gave me the chance.
Yeah,
So
there you go. Love this turbine fan.
do
Oh, you might do a scavenger hunt at
you need permits for doing scavenger hunts? Oh yeah, should
I
not
don't know.
complain about it.
Maybe it's just some alpha that Jess is spilling. And yeah, I don't see further questions. Do you maybe have some alpha that is not linked to like ZK stuff or something that's like last words to tell to Superteam Germany?
I don't have any alpha that's not linked to ZK, and that's my alpha. My alpha is be obsessive about what the fuck you're building. To be honest, I break this every single part of my day. Um, and as a founder, there's only 24 hours in a day. It's not a lot. And if you want to pick an area to start a hackathon, you start a project, pick something that you want to brief 24 hours a day. Because quite frankly, yeah, I could not do this if it was something I fucking hated. So
Well, that's the alpha then. Like
yeah, it's the
you
alpha.
you are obsessed with the tech you do, and that's great. Like if you love doing what you do, then you will be able to stick to it for the long term. And that's definitely the way to go. Like I see some people ask me, I should go into crypto because that's the way of making money. And I mean, it's not necessarily the point. Like you can also lose money, of course. And if you like it, you might succeed, but never do anything that you don't like. And that's definitely the alpha that I can take from this.
Cool.
Amazing. A love from the audience. And yeah, I think because we are already near the end and we don't have further questions, I would like to thank you very much, Vitor, for joining our Dev Guild. And I'm very much looking into what you come up with up unto Abu Dhabi. And maybe in the future we will do another Dev Guild with you, like
Yeah,
say future work when you have new stuff or something to show or promote, then would love to invite you again to our dev guilds or to the community in Germany. And yeah, happy to have you. Thank you very much, and
cool. Yeah, same. It's a pleasure.
enjoy your time. Take care.